Hello, everyone, and good morning. Welcome to our live feed update for August 17th. I'm your host, Taran Armstrong, and with me today is Mel. How you doing, Mel?
Hey, I'm so great. Happy to be here. Been a minute since I was on an update. I took a little vacation when gaming was crazy, and today was a bit of I don't want to jinx it, bit of a slower day, less going on. So maybe we'll be able to get finally caught up.
Yes, we are here to update you on everything that happened yesterday on the Big Brother 23 live feeds. It was day 41 in the house, and it was a bit of a slower day.
Yes.
And the thing here is, I think this is the first of perhaps many slower days, as the house
did get that sense.
has definitely solidified. And for as much as there's talk surrounding like what to do with the twists and all of that, it's almost as if that has caused things to be even slower, because it's just a bunch of people talking in circles about details about how to get around the twists, rather than anything to do with actual game plans moving forward.
Yeah, because there was a lot of talking yesterday and a lot of talking about game, but when I was going through my notes, I was like, I feel like it's just saying the same stuff, and people are lying to each other, so there's a little bit of trying to sift out, okay, are you telling the truth here? But then once you figure it out, it's like, oh, they're still with their original plan, so it's like all that was pointless.
Yeah, we've reached the point in the season, or at least the point in the game right now, where a lot of the talk is meaningless, because the only talk that really matters is between specific people who actually have the power. And then even the talk between specific people sometimes is meaningless because they're just trying to, account for every conceivable scenario, which is not always the most interesting thing to walk through, especially
it's a good
when
thing we have so much practice listening to the throuple go over and over and over their plans every single day. This is a cakewalk compared to that.
True. All right. Well, we'll get into the day here. Of course, Kyland, as the HOH, nominated Claire and Big D for eviction. Alyssa won the veto, and Kyland got a second one because he bet on Alyssa with the high roller twist. Kyland intends to use the veto on Claire to nominate Brittany and send Brittany home, primarily because she won $100 from the audience and they don't want her to be able to afford any of the upcoming powers. So that's the plan for today. The veto ceremony is scheduled to be here today, and we will talk about the aftermath as we move forward with the day. In the morning, Brittany was feeling kind of nervous. There was a looming sense of doom in the air for her. She still had not been made aware of the fact that she was going to go up on the block, but she was feeling a little bit anxious. Like, it's just, the veto shouldn't be used, right? And because she knows if the veto is used, she's probably screwed. But she doesn't think the veto is going to be used because there's no indication that that's going to happen. But she's just a little bit worried. I mean, she's been up on the block now, as she probably has reminded you many times, as well as anybody else that would listen, so many times, at least now 3 times, and it's about to be a 4th.
Oh, how do you know? It's like she'll mention it later, very briefly, that she's been on the block that many times. But yeah, it's very, very understandable, and as she should be. Like, everyone this morning, I feel like, should be fairly nervous, especially when there's 2 vetoes going on. Like, unless you're in a Tiffany position where you know exactly what's going to happen and what everyone's going to do, you should be a little bit nervous and acting accordingly. Like, should she be trying to go and keep herself off the block at this point? Because if she's not going up, then she's just maybe screwing herself over. But if she is going up, the plans may be already in place, but that doesn't mean she shouldn't try.
Yeah, I mean, talking to Kyland, maybe there's, I mean, the thing about it is that by this time, there's basically nothing you can do most of the time. I mean, yeah, maybe she should have talked to Kyland and tried to do something more, but anything she could have said to Kyland, at the 11th hour before the veto ceremony, probably should have been said to him at the 1st hour when he won HOH, right? So it's more, I'm more about I think maybe correcting mistakes that led you to that point that are now much harder to correct than it is anything else. So
I do like what Claire did this morning, though, and I don't think a player like Brittany could pull this off. But Claire just basically, she woke up, went right up to Kyland's HOH and was like, hey, you know that plan? Yeah, we're good. You're still good? And then just
Yes.
stayed there for like an hour, hour and a half. And so, like, in theory, Brittany could do that same thing. You'd be like, oh man, like, I'm so glad I'm not going on the block because here's all the reasons why it makes sense for you to keep me. And that could do something, but Brittany's not really that kind of a player that's so like outspoken like that.
Yes, and I did like that from Claire. I mean, Claire has been good about this all week long. She, even though I think she has gotten a bit sloppier lately, she still is, head and shoulders above a lot of other players when it comes to just the little things, like, going up to the HOH after he gets a veto and making sure that he wants to use it on you. Going up to the HOH who has the veto and plans on using it on you right before the veto ceremony to make sure that's still the case.
And with Kylan, you kind of needed to make sure it's still the case.
Yes.
Especially when he stays up until 6 a.m. with Sarah Beth in the hammock. Goodness, that man does not sleep.
Yes, he does reassure her that, yes, the veto is still going to be used. Big D does try to make a last-minute pitch to get the veto used on himself rather than Claire, and says that it makes more sense for Brittany and Claire to be up on the block. The votes are a bit easier that way. But Kylan says, no, it doesn't make more sense. Then Claire wouldn't trust me and it wouldn't make sense to anybody. So no, that's not what we're going to do.
Yeah, it was a very, very quick pitch, but like you got to do it just in case there's that chance. And yeah, it was just maybe like a kind of like a one-off, like, could we do it? Like, is that really important? And Kylan just basically shuts him down and be like, yes, this is what we need to do. Like, end of story. And you can't really go like do anything with that.
And Claire essentially filibustering, again, this is why, like, even though likely nothing would have ever changed, but Claire being in there for so long prevented Big D from being in there pitching himself, prevented Brittany from being in there pitching anything. So it's always good. It's weird that we have to praise this because it seems like common sense, but not enough players do it.
And it's easy because you don't even have to like talk to Kylan. You just have to like be there when he says nonsense sentences at you and just bounce them back and be like, oh yeah, definitely. Yep, agreed.
Yeah. So we get to the veto ceremony. The veto is used on Claire and Brittany goes up as the replacement nominee. And she's not happy, of course. She's going to be upset. She's going to be crying a bit. She tells Big D afterward that she made a deal with Kylan and he went back on it. The deal with Kylan, why did he make a deal with me just to go back on it? He made a deal with me to go to Final 5. Why Final 5? Why not Final 2? Why not Final 8? I don't understand. Why Final 5 and then backdoor me the same week?
I wish that like Brittany could be there, like if I'm needing to study something, because she just repeats things so many times that it's now ingrained in my head. He shook on it 3 times. Why did he shake on it? He shook on it 3 times. I'm now on the block 4 out of 6 weeks. I'm on the block.
4 out of 6 weeks. She's
4
only
out of
been
6.
safe for 14 days out of 41.
On the block for 27 days out of 41. See, like if I had an exam right now, I'd ace it on like Brittany facts.
Yeah, everyone, any quiz competition that involves a question about Brittany, they're going to nail it because she has those facts down.
That should be her pitch. Be like, guys, keep me here. I'll just like rant at you and you'll win the comp because I'll give you all the information.
Well, additionally, she is not planning on voting for Kylan in the final 2. He lost my jury vote. She's later going to talk about how he has now lost, additionally, 3 jury votes.
Don't you dare.
Because none of the jokers are voting for Kylan in the end. Which
I always love when they... Oh.
It's not that far from the truth. I don't think Azza will vote for Kylan in the end, but Big D probably would.
She may be right. The reasoning she's getting there is wrong. And especially like it always makes me laugh when they do this like right after this big event happens that makes them so mad. It's like, oh, here's all the things that are definitely going to happen in the next in like 40 days. It's like you're going to change your mind 100 times by then. And it's like, I know you're just mad, but it always just is like, yeah, okay. 3 votes. Sure.
So her and Big D agree they're not going to campaign against each other. Big D is going to go full on like, I would never, I'm not going to say a word to campaign against you, Brittany. Okay,
Frenchie.
You know that you're good.
Yeah. This whole conversation was really interesting because when the camps came back, it was just a room with Azza, DF, and Brittany, and she is very mad, understandably. I don't know if she knows she's a target here, but it's funny because like Derek's also on the block and she's just like ranting and raving and it's so ridiculous and he's just very chill. like, yep. And it's interesting that, well, she does eventually realize she's the target, but she should be like, why aren't you freaking
out? Big D does talk to Azza. He's upset that Alyssa didn't use the veto on him. After everything he's done for Alyssa in this game, he can't believe that she would just stand there and not use her veto on him. And Azza's like, I mean, you did just vote out Christian last week. And he's doesn't. And she probably was worried about Xavier going up. Like, still though,
doesn't count.
Alyssa does apologize to Big D for not using the veto. She says, I was worried Xavier could go up. He's like, okay, yeah, I get it. It's
fine. That was her main reason, basically, for not using it, right? Because Kylan had to use his first. So in theory, she could have vetoed Brittany, right?
She could have, but she has no reason to veto Brittany. I mean, she has no game relationship with Brittany that would cause her to go against Kylan or anything like that. And, the idea behind Kylan not telling her who the replacement was is that she gets to now say to Brittany and Big D that, like, I didn't know what was going to happen, genuinely, and I was worried that if I used my veto, Xavier would go up, and then that would be bad. That would be bad.
Yeah, that's valid.
Yeah. So yes, she is of course upset about the speech as well.
Yes.
And I mean, on one hand, makes sense that Kylan would have said something dumb in a speech. On the other hand, she's also been upset with every other speech. So, who knows?
Yeah, in the many retellings of this, it's a lot like he quote unquote threw not throwing or not winning the veto in her face. So he probably made some sort of offhanded comment like, "Oh, at least you had the chance to win the veto," or something like that, where he was trying to be like, "At least it's not like a super backdoor or anything." But she took that very poorly.
Yeah, Kylan is not great at being in power, I guess.
There are so many ways you could have finished that sentence. Kylan is not great at many aspects of this game right now.
This is very much like the case of, like, he's doing his best to blame Brittany for this. I mean, even because he did make this deal with Brittany, and when him and Hannah were talking about how Brittany probably won $100 and that she definitely lied to Kylan about it, he was like, boom, perfect. Here's my excuse that I got ammunition now to say, this is why I'm going out. You lied to me. You broke our deal first. And in general, I feel like this is an instinct that people have so often, is that, like, they feel like, okay, I'm doing this person a wrong. I'm wronging them in some way. But if I can find a way that they did wrong and that they deserve this, then I am more clear and less guilty, and they'll be less mad at me. And thus, I should make them. I mean, it's, I guess, essentially the root of gaslighting. But that's not how it works. Like, yes. If you blaming her for you doing something to her is just, I mean, I guess gaslighting works, but like, not if you're really bad at it.
Well, and the point is that you want them to feel good, and they're not going to feel it after this. So, like, for example, if I say, Taran, all the stuff that got lost in the move is because I stole it, but that's because you moved without telling people. You'd be like, well, now I'm still missing all my stuff, and now we're not friends, and now, like, it doesn't fix the problem. It just makes them feel double bad when the point of the game is to have the good relationship.
Yeah, like trying to find ways to blame the other person is not the way to fix that relationship.
No.
Like, if that's your goal, like, trying to avoid, because I feel like I genuinely feel like this is a huge issue for people in general, not just in the game, but like trying to avoid blame for something just makes you more blameworthy.
It drives me nuts if someone's like, if I be like, oh, you forgot to take the garbage out, and they're like, oh, well, this was happening, and then I found this.
Why didn't you remind me?
Yeah, that too. It's like, just say sorry. Just say, oh yeah, I forgot. Like 100 times better. Just be like, you know what, Brittany, like, yeah, we had a deal. I'm really sorry I had to go back on it, whatever. She's gonna be mad, but at least she won't be going around like doing all this. I don't know, mad for a different reason, I guess. But it's easier to repair because then it's like, okay, he admitted that he wronged me. And then, like, that's kind of where the anger stops. You can't go beyond that. Like, and then he justified it with this, and then he did this. It's like, oh yeah, he went back on a deal. End of
Yeah,
story.
this is by the way a preemptive rant. We're gonna get to the primary cause of this in just a little bit here. I guess we'll continue until we get to that point.
I guess so.
Um, Claire is going to talk with Tiffany about she thinks that they should keep Brittany in the game this week. We talked about this before. Claire and Derek X have discussed this. They think it's the right move to take out Big D this week, and they've been trying to pitch it everywhere they go. They are shut down because they are trying to pitch it to various members of the cookout, and so it's not really working too well. So Claire goes to Tiffany. She says she thinks that they should keep Brittany. She goes through the reasons why she thinks it makes sense. Tiffany does the move that they have planned for when this happens, because Hannah already gave Tiffany the heads up that this is coming. Hey, let's talk to Kyland about it. Let's try and figure. We don't want to piss off Kyland. Can we get Kyland on board? Claire's like, yeah, I think we could convince Kyland because, it makes a lot of sense. Tiffany's like, I don't think Kyland's going to be convinced, but we should try. And so they're essentially just building up Kyland as the bad guy here to shut this all down. And Kyland says no. It just doesn't make sense for us. Sorry.
Really? Please, can we sleep over? Please, Kyland, please. No,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Yeah, and it's a really good mood for them at this point, because Kylan is just like, he's made himself the scapegoat. Like, he screwed up this week. He's doing all this like garbage moves, so it doesn't even make sense for them to not make him the scapegoat. It's like, yeah, he's already gonna be a target. He's already like, people are suspicious of him and whatever. Just put it all on Kylan.
Yes. So discussion is going to continue from the night before when it started, and I hadn't brought this up because I didn't really reach enough of a conclusion at the time, but there's been discussion about should they reveal the cookout in the goodbye messages, and the ultimate conclusion that they have come to is no, they are not going to be revealing the cookout in the goodbye messages. They are too concerned about a potential buyback or battle back, and so they are going to say they're all going to have to agree not to do this. Nobody's going to be the one person to screw them all up and be like, no, I'm going to get to say it. And so they've all agreed. Nobody's doing it. Nobody's revealing the cookout and goodbye messages.
This is so risky, but they've all like been able to come together so many times in other aspects of the game where they don't get along that I actually feel like they might be able to pull this off, which is crazy, because telling 6 people, don't take credit for this move, like don't try and like get closer to winning the prize, and them all being like, okay, is very rare. But I understand why, but I still don't know if it's the best move. I mean, we know there's not a buyback, so it's a little bit cheating, but I still don't know if it's the best move.
I mean, it makes sense. I mean, the thing about, again, the cookout is that, like, even if they wanted to go against it at this point, the cookout is so strong and so powerful that you can't. If you did say betray the cookout and reveal the cookout in the goodbye message to be like, haha, I'm going to get a leg up on the jury, you're ignoring the fact that potentially 5 cookout members are going to be on the jury. They're the ones that you're going to be pissing off to maybe get a leg up on the other 4.
That's fair.
So it's like, at the very least, there are going to be at least 4 cookout members on the jury. And if they go to jury and they're like greeted by, we found out about the cookout from Hannah, like, what the hell, Hannah? We all agreed. Now I'm not. You think you're going to get some jury votes because of that? No, I'm not voting for you in the jury because you screwed us over.
I don't know if it would be enough to say of all the reasons to vote or not to vote for someone. If there's a cookout and a non-cookout member left at the final 2, they're not going to be like, no, you did this thing we agreed not to. Now I'm withholding my vote. But if it's enough of a betrayal, it depends on how they're viewing it. I could see that.
Yeah, I mean, and I think it goes along with this in terms of the goodbye messages, but it also goes along in terms of, like, you can't really betray the cookout now.
Yeah.
Like, even if they wanted to, which I don't think they do, game-wise, it doesn't make enough sense unless they can get enough buy-in from within the cookout. You can't, as a single individual, betray the cookout and expect to win the game in the way that you might have before. The way to betray the cookout is to keep your ally until the end and then hope that they win something and then knock out a couple of people, and which is what pretty much all of them should be doing. But none of them, except for potentially Xavier, seems to be trying to do. So
And I think that's part of the reason why we're in a little bit of like a lull in the feeds at this point and why it's looking to that way. Because before now, for the couple weeks before, it's like, okay, we're not like super solid yet. Like there's still enough people in the house that like the cookout could be betrayed and then a couple of them could go pre-jury and things like that. But now it's like all the cookouts on the jury. There's not enough stragglers to pull together some sort of other alliance. So now it's like it's inevitable that for the next 3 weeks, there's going to be some combination of the 3 people going and then the cookout's going to finish. And there's not really any opportunity for any of them to do that without getting totally screwed in the end game.
Yeah, I think the way that I would describe it is that I think the twists have really locked in how this is going to play out. There's still a small chance that Derek X is going to describe this later, and we can go into it. But if he wins next week and somehow manages to do something, and then gets the coup d'état the coin of destiny the next week, then maybe something can happen. But beyond that, like specific outcome, what we're probably looking at is that basically, instead of the next few weeks being, can they figure out the cookout? Can they take the shot they need to? The next few weeks are probably going to be, okay, Big Brother has placed a couple of obstacles in the way of the cookout. And the next few weeks are going to be watching them navigate those obstacles, which you'd think, oh, okay, that sounds interesting in theory. But what you're forgetting is that now if Claire or Derek X or Sarah Beth or whoever, somebody outside of the cookout wins, they also have those obstacles to navigate around, and they're just going to get smashed in the face with them because they don't have the power or numbers to navigate around them. And it's just going to be so basically just, I think one of the primary reasons things have really locked in place here is that that these twists have all but guaranteed that the cookout in the next 3 weeks are going to just have to carefully navigate through them, and they are good enough players to do that. So we shouldn't have to have too much of a struggle here in the coming weeks, apart from a few very key small potential outcomes. Again, primarily somebody like Derek X getting that coin of destiny. But even then, he still has to take the right shot, which is not a guarantee. And he also needs to land the coin correctly.
Do you feel more at home now? Like we started the season and there was a team twist and it was actually kind of good. Like we kind of liked the twist and it felt weird. And now, okay, go back to regular scheduled programming. We hate twists.
I mean, I'll tell you, today was a lot easier to prep for.
That is true. Sleep likes twists. But yeah, so sorry, just to do that one more thing is, even if DX takes that shot, that's one cookout member, and they're probably just going to throw Kylan to the wolves. So then there's still 5 of them left, and then he can't play at HOH the next week. So it's like any shot they take at this point is just going to make it easier to get them back the next week, and then continue the cookout going.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It really, because the thing is that we can kind of skip to we'll get there. We'll go there. Tiffany talks to Big D. She says they talk about what he could do next week. Tiffany, of course, is so basically Hannah has been the one talking to a lot of people. She was initially trying to get Derek X to go next week, then changed her mind. Now wants Alyssa to be the one to go next week. Tiffany has always wanted it to be Sarah Beth. She's wanted it to be Sarah Beth since like 3 weeks ago. So it's about time it's Sarah Beth. And so Tiffany wants to push the Sarah Beth agenda, of course, on Big D, who is very receptive. He's like, yeah, I'm down for Sarah Beth. I think it makes sense. I can say, Kylan took out my girl. Now I'm going to take out his girl. That's what I'm going to say.
You get him.
Boom.
That's what we love. Revenge, even if it not good for your game.
Yes. So that's going to be the Big D way of things. So Azaz is going to have her own sort of plot line here. A couple of them, actually. And we don't have to go into every conversation about it. But basically, Azza wants to be able to vote for Brittany to stay. But she needs to make sure that Derek, Claire, Sarah Beth, and Alyssa all don't vote that same way. Because if she gives Brittany a sympathy vote, and then all 4 of the non-cookout members also happen to vote that way, then just like that, Big D's gone. So she needs to be absolutely sure that everyone is on the same page about voting Brittany out of the game so that she can be the one vote to keep Brittany in the game. And the fact that Claire and Derek are trying to flip the vote is not giving her a lot of confidence that she can safely do this, which is upsetting. And so this is going to be something that I imagine is going to continue over the next few days, just trying to make sure that everything is locked in so that she can vote that way.
And I do get the sense that this is not a game move she's trying to make. She's not saying, I want Brittany's jury vote, so I want to make sure that I'm able to give her the vote to leave. She just wants to, right?
Yes, basically that she feels like Brittany deserves which doesn't
Yeah.
deserve to go out unanimously.
So yeah, I mean that's fair. I feel like she's spending a lot of time and energy on something that just not is like doesn't matter to her game. Is kind of annoying because I would love to see her a little bit more game interested. And yeah, at least she's being very open with Derek F about like, yeah, I I want to vote for Brittany, but only if we're like super duper duper sure that you have the votes. So
well, she is also thinking. I mean, again, like the game has really started to consolidate, I would say. And so it's really just a lot of hypothetical discussions at this point. Azza has a plan for the roulette situation. She calls it the roulette. I don't know if that's a thing anywhere, but it's she says roulette. It's if somebody gets nominated through the roulette, then okay, that's maybe they say it like that somewhere.
Yeah, I don't know. ETTE could. Yeah,
I think a French pronunciation of it would make sense with the ET, but
let us know in the comments.
So she has a plan for it, and
it's a very convoluted plan.
I can't say that I love the plan. I can see where she's coming from a little bit, right? So the initially discussed plan is
so who did she originally figure this out with?
Well, she talks it through with a few different people.
Yeah.
And
because the one with Chad is the main one I saw where they kind of were tweaking it.
They were talking about it. Xavier, she talked about it with Xavier. She talked about it with Big D and Hannah later. But basically, the original plan that Big D and Kylan discussed was that Big D was like, no Cookout members can touch the block next week because we can't risk two of them ending up on the block at the end of the week. This is correct. Big D, in my opinion, has the right view of things. Kylan agrees that they should not nominate any Cookout members, although Kylan said, as long as we're sure that nobody can afford the roulette twist, then we can safely nominate at least one Cookout member to maintain appearances, because then we guarantee that a Cookout member gets the roulette power and takes down the Cookout member, again, to make sure that...
but what's the point next week of maintaining appearances? There'll be, 9 people left?
I mean, there is still a point. But I think, again, I think Big D actually has the right of this more than anybody else that's discussed it, which is, look, if we have to break our cover next week in order to nominate 2 non-Cookout members to make sure we're good, then so be it.
Like the biggest thing going wrong next week is people find out about the Cookout. The biggest thing going wrong with Azza's thing is that a Cookout member leaves. So
exactly. Yeah. I mean, I think ideally you do keep it under wraps still, and also maintain a non-Cookout member leaving. But basically, a lot of people want to put Kylan up on the block next to Sarah Beth, and so if they're sure that nobody else can win the roulette power, then they can safely do that as long as because a Cookout member can win that roulette power, take down Kylan, and then somebody else will go up next to Sarah Beth. Doesn't matter who, as long as Sarah Beth's on the block, and a Cookout member is HOH because they can control the renom if the veto is used. So that's that. But off of that, Azza says, no, I have something that makes more sense. If you nominate 2 Cookout members for the block, for eviction, when you're HOH, then what that does is it gives us more of a chance to win the roulette power. And okay, so basically how this works is that if 2 Cookout members are on the block, one of them is HOH, and then one of them has the roulette power, then theoretically you could have 4 Cookout members safe from the roulette nominations. You're maximizing the odds of somebody not in the Cookout being the roulette nominee. Meaning, say, for instance, Azza is HOH. She nominates Kylan and Tiffany. And then Xavier wins the roulette power. He pulls Tiffany off the block. Now, the only people that can be put on the block via the roulette power are Hannah Big D, and then the other 4 non-cookout members. So it's a 4 of 6 chance, a 2 and 3 chance
4
of
out of 6. Sorry.
exactly of landing a non-cookout member on the block next to Kyland, and now you're solid. And you've helped cover the cookout. Whereas if you nominate Sarah Beth and Kyland, then even if one of the cookout members wins the thing, then there's still a chance that a cookout member ends up on the block next to Sarah Beth. But that's the thing. So,
and you just vote them out because you have the numbers.
Right. But if a non-cookout member wins the roulette power at that point, then they could take down Sarah Beth, and now 2 non-cookout members are safe, and it's there are 4 cookout members available, so the odds are worse for you in that scenario. So again, you can kind of see where the logic is coming from, but there just appear to be so many more better options elsewhere.
This plan is statistically the best chance of there not being 2 cookout members on the block at the end of the week.
It's basically she's optimizing for preventing the roulette nominee from being a cookout member. But the roulette nominee doesn't need to not be a cookout member in order to make things work. But that's what she's trying to optimize for. And basically everyone she talks to is like, that seems super risky.
Because couldn't instead they just nominate Sarah Beth and someone else and be like, oh, we're backdooring Kyland and make it this big thing. And that's why they couldn't put Kyland up next to her. And
exactly.
then, I feel like it's still going to be hidden that way.
Yeah. And that's why I think, again, Big D has the right of it. Just nominate 2 non-cookout members. Yeah. You can say whatever you need to say. And you can make it work. I think it's fine. But I think there's perhaps another motivation here for Azah, which she pretty much comes out and says she just really wants Kyland to be on the block all week. She says she says straight up, like, I'm petty. I want him on the block all week. That's part of why I want to do this plan.
It's funny because later she's like, you know what? I'm over it. The whole throwing the HOH thing. I'm over it. Like, it's fine. I'm done with it. She's not done with it. She wants him on the block. She wants him to suffer a little bit.
She says if she wins HOH, she'll talk to every cookout member, and as long as they all agree, she'll do this plan. Except for Kyland, because that mother effer can say whatever he wants. He's touching the block.
And this is part of the reason that the cookout is working so well, because it's so hard to get a group of people together that don't like each other, but have them be sticking together. I saw on Reddit that this is basically the Kasaya tribe from Survivor. And it's so true. They hate each other, but they stick together because they know it's best for their game. And so it's like just this big dysfunctional mess, but it makes them impossible to be caught onto. Different than Survivor. But because why would they assume that Kylan and Azah are working together? Because they hate each other. And they kind of aren't, but they kind of are.
Well, I mean, I think even beyond that, it's not really best for many of their games to go to Final Six with the cookout, which makes it, I think, that much more difficult. Like, even if you did see, you'd assume, like, well, surely some self-interest would be involved in at the very very least, they would want their person to get to as far as possible so that they have the best odds of getting to the end and winning. But not even that has seemed to be the case.
Because good players, yeah.
I mean, the level of team-focused play is much higher than any other season we've ever. Like, this is way beyond anything we've ever seen in terms of team-focused play, and trying to predict that, interpret that in any way. On top of all the drama and interpersonal disagreements and stuff, very, very tough, I think, to see this.
How would you compare this to Big Brother 19, that alliance? Because that's one of the alliances in recent history that was like the strongest, and that they could put each other up as pawns and things like that, and they would stick together. They wouldn't turn on each other. Is that similar to this? Because in some of the other ones, like the Pretty Boys or the Brigade, like they kick a member out when they need to, and they're not doing this here.
The Big Brother 19 structure was based on them betraying each other constantly, right? Like it was based on keeping them hating each other, right? Like,
and just one person.
Paul was the only one that could go in between the groups, and he kept them all separate as groups, and he would one by one say, now this group is our enemy, and then boom, they're gone. Now this group is our enemy, boom, they're gone. And he'd slowly whittle it down, as opposed to these 6 people who are genuinely trying to optimize for not their personal game, but the game of getting all 6 of them to the final 6. And I think that at the very least, some of them recognize that that is not their ideal scenario. But I can't be entirely sure because they don't always vocalize it. But yeah, it's very very focused on the 6 and getting the 6 to the final 6, which is not really anything that that people have cared to do all that much in the past.
Yeah, and it makes it really hard for even good players to, because the good players will assume that everyone's acting in their own best interest, and you cannot plan, okay, assuming this person is not acting in their best interest, what will they do? You just have to assume they will, and so then it makes it just that much harder to counter.
And Kazam, thank you for reminding me that Paul does now use they, them pronouns. Yes. So just always, it's good to be reminded of that. So let's see. Okay. Brittany is going to go ahead and talk with Kyland. We don't, the feeds keep cutting in and out of this conversation, but basically
all night, it was awful. I just need to get the rant in there. It's like literally a minute of feeds, a minute of not feeds, just over and over. It was awful. Okay, go ahead.
Yes. Basically, Kyland is telling Brittany, obviously you can do whatever you want, but I recommend you take the day and think about what you want to say. Like, okay, what? That's kind of weird. Why is he telling? She says, well, can I ask, like, am I the target? He says, initially I was indifferent, but then I was hearing things that you were saying, which is why I recommend taking the day, think about what you want to say. Because at the moment there's an indifference that's available, that's on the table, but you should think carefully about your next steps if you want to achieve that indifference from me.
I got nothing. That was a big load of nothing. What is that? There is an indifference that's available. Is he speaking in code? Do we have a Kyland translator?
Well, what he's saying is that he used the veto on Claire, put her on the block, and was indifferent about who leaves between Brittany and Big D, that he wasn't targeting her. That's the first claim, right? That this was not targeting you. I am indifferent. Either you can go or Big D can go. I do not care. However, Brittany, you've been very naughty, and I've been hearing saying things about me. And now, even though I was indifferent, now I'm thinking I do want you to go because of the things that you've been saying. So what I recommend for you is to just take a chill pill, think about what
he didn't say chill pill, did he?
No, this is me. I'm interpreting. Think about what you want to say before you say it, because you are clearly acting in haste. You're not thinking clearly. You're saying things about me. And where I once was indifferent, I am no longer indifferent. But that indifference is still on the table. I can go back to being indifferent if you chill and stop saying my name. All right? So if you just stop saying that you're going to strike at me, stop saying things about me, then I can go back to being indifferent, and you will have a better chance of staying in the house against Big D. That is what he is telling.
Wowzers. I just need to translate for the podcast only listeners. When you started that, you had your nose in the air. You had an air of like, I'm so great. I'm Kyland. I'm indifferent. And then as you were talking down to Brittany, your face turned down and we got to evil Kyland, who's like, do not dare go against me or I'll get you out of this house.
Yeah, and like the thing that, I mean, the thing that really clinches this is like, come on, is that it's complete BS in the first place. Of course you were targeting her, and of course there is no indifference on the table. That's not even the case. And like, I'm not mad that you're trying to get somebody to stop campaigning against you or saying bad things about you in the game. Like, game-wise, that makes sense. But the method with which you're trying to accomplish this goal is absurd. It's rude, and it's not going to work.
Yeah, it's not like him doing it wrong. It's like no one could be like, what did he say? Yeah, when the campaign turns against Kylan, I understand it's part of the game, but I would recommend you don't do that. Like, no one can pull that off. Stupid thing to say.
She says, look, I don't want to campaign against Big D, but I do want to say like why I want to stay in the game. And he says, that's a great idea. You should focus on that. And let me add on to that. You know how you said you don't want to campaign against Big D? In that same vein, I feel like you should also not want to campaign against me, which is, again, why I'm suggesting you take a day.
Suggesting with quotes. It's like a mafia. I suggest you don't do that because you might not like what happens.
Yeah, Brittany's going to talk to the cameras after. Excuse me? So how are you supposed to? You are the HOH. I am on the block, and you're telling me how I'm supposed to run my campaign?
Yeah. It was so funny because after the meeting, she was very upset. She was very annoyed, like as she should be. And she was like, you know what? I'm never talking to him. Like, I'm not going to do it, whatever. I'm just going to whatever. And then she finally calmed down enough. And she's like, okay, fine. Like I think maybe Tiff talked to her and was like, just calm down. Like, go talk to him. Like, you need to do it. She finally calmed down. And then has Kylan telling her, calm down, take a chill pill and like do as I say, basically. And it just got her right back fired up.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it.
It's just like I don't know what he thought he was going to accomplish here. I mean, clearly he thought that like he was going to convince her that if she wanted his support, she should stop saying his name, which again, like that's fine. But the way that he said it was so bad. Like there's so many different ways that he could have gone about that would have been fine and probably would have worked. But no,
And the cherry on top of this is later into the night talking to Sarah Beth. He's like, yeah, Brittany and I talked earlier. I answered her like a politician. Like it was really good. Like he's happy with how this went. I was like, bro, no.
Yeah, it's just, these people live in their own worlds for, 41 days. And the people that you see at the start of the game can sometimes really start to change as they exist in their own little bubble. This is definitely does not read the same as the Kylan that we saw in the beginning. Maybe
he was so nice.
I'm sure there are other people that are going to be like, nah, I knew. I always thought he was the worst. But he was pretty popular in the beginning. People really liked Kylan. People thought he was very kind, very sweet, and a great man. And now,
and for what it's worth, I don't think he is no longer a great man. I think that he is trapped in this crazy house, and the power has gone to his head. He has HOH-itis. He's now, for me, he's a rootable villain. He is messing this up. He's going to get his comeuppance, and I just along for the ride.
Yes, and again, and I would say for what it's worth, I do think that Kylan is the kind of person who will come out of the house and be like, "Oh my God, what did I?"
Yeah, I absolutely agree.
I'm so sorry, Brittany. I let it get to my head. Like, what an idiot I am.
And he didn't he's talking down to her and he's being condescending, but I don't feel like it's coming from a I want to make her feel bad. Like he's trying to save his butt. He's like, I don't know, trying to make sure everyone still likes him and doing it in a really crappy way. But yeah.
Mm-hmm. So Brittany is going to complain to Azza about
the rest of the day.
With Kylan. She's going to complain to Xavier. Everyone's basically going to be comforting her, telling her, you campaign however you want to campaign, Brittany. Because why not? Because this is the thing, too, is that Kylan is trying to get her to stop talking about him. But who cares? You're running the game right now. She can say whatever she wants. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to an extent, he is going to be the first one to leave, probably, of their group. But nothing Brittany says is had anything to do with that.
Quite frankly, the more she says against you, Kylan, the better for your game. Because her talking about how you don't have 3 jury votes and how she's definitely not voting for you is probably the best thing to happen to your game since you won the HOH the first time.
Xavier's like, ooh, really?
Exactly.
Doesn't have 3 votes?
Anyway, Derek is going to talk with Tiffany as she cuts his hair. He's getting a haircut from Tiffany, and at one point she goes, "Oops."
I still don't know if that was a joke or not. Because I know
it was not. I do not believe it was a joke.
I didn't think so either. But it looked fine. It wasn't like an oops shave just the side of your head.
Yeah,
but,
it wasn't like a huge oops. It was just like a small oops.
A baby oops.
And then no, it's fine. It's fine.
That's what you want to hear. He's like, what? Let me see.
I've seen some mixed opinions here on the haircut.
Mm.
I feel like there are some people that are saying not a great haircut. I mean, I have a tweet here. Interested to hear your take on Tiffany's innovative new strategy of give the house heartthrob an awful haircut, so hopefully America doesn't like him as much. But I'm also seeing tweets of like people fawning over the haircut. So take that for what you will. But I'm seeing in the chat most people saying that they don't love the haircut, or that at the very least it's just fine.
Yeah, I've seen the mixed reactions as well. Later, after I think it was Claire, Ozza, and DX laugh about how everyone lied to Tiff about being a good haircut, Derek says he's like, I'll lie down for the next 2 weeks so no one can see the back of my head.
Here's the thing. I actually, look, my opinion, no, it's not a great haircut. This is, she did not blend very well here on the sides. But I think this could look good, just not the way that he styles his hair normally.
Right.
He needs
it's a little poofy around the top and then kind of too short.
Yeah, it's not the right cut for the style that he's going for. So he could either change the style or get the cut fixed.
I will say though that I actually have to give my husband a COVID haircut tonight because hairdressers are still closed, and I actually learned some stuff from watching Tiff. So you like cut up rather than like pulling it down and cut across. Because girls' hair you do this because it's just long. You cut the bottom, but guys' hair you gotta like cut the side. I don't know. Do you ever cut your own hair? Did you, when you were desperate,
yes.
Did you cut it?
Yes.
Do you do the sideways thing? How did you do it? Or do you have the buzzer?
Yeah, you got a buzzer.
You got a buzzer. Does that work with curls?
I mean, I always have it buzzed anyway, so.
Oh, well, how do you do the top?
Just the sides. Oh, I didn't do the top.
Oh,
I just did the sides. Yeah.
Okay.
So, which, is typically how I got to get a haircut now, actually. The sides are too long right now.
You can't train Kellis to do it? No thumbs.
Unfortunately, I feel like his claws are certainly sharp enough. Anyway, as she's giving him a haircut, he is going to pitch why he thinks it's right to keep Brittany in the game. And she is again going to guide him toward, well, let's try and get Kyland on board. And he says, this is when he says, basically, he thinks that they could be guaranteed the coup d'etat power. Let's say we do take out Big D this week. If I win HOH next week, then I'll definitely be safe next week. I can take out Big D next week. And then heading into the third week, I will be the only one that can afford the coup d'etat. I'm guaranteed a coup d'etat if I win that HOH and I take out Big D. And that's great. And then we can take out another big target. And then he can compete in the following week. So that would be amazing for Derek X's game. And that would be the one way that theoretically the cookout could falter. However,
he's telling it all to Tiffany. Oh, okay.
Well, even then, Derek X trying to let's say that that the roulette power didn't exist. Derek X could win the HOH. He could put up Big D and Ozza, and then one of them could go home. Maybe not Big D. Maybe they would send home Ozza because they need Big D to compete with Derek X with the money. But at the very least, he probably wouldn't. There's a chance he wouldn't put up a non-cookout member next to Big D. I don't think he'd put up Ozza because he likes Ozza. The reality is that he put up Big D and like Alyssa or something else. But or maybe Kyland even. I don't know. But he could try to take that shot with the roulette power. Even if he does try to take that shot, the chances of him being able to land it are significantly lower. So he is much less likely to land that shot, which means that, again, things are more locked in because of that. However, if he does win HOH next week, it does mean he's guaranteed to get a chance at that coin of destiny in the third week. And that's where things could get a little more interesting because now he would have a full-on chance to take a shot at the cookout. But that is, after another non-cookout member leaves. So he's in an even worse spot at that point. But basically, like, that's what and we are at Big Brother 19 levels of like, well, if this and this and this and this happen, then maybe this can happen.
Yeah, because like you said, even if he gets that person up, they would have to expose the cookout at that point, I think, by flipping the vote. But at that point, what can you do about it? So, yeah.
He says he's never really understood the floater game until he realized that nobody wants to waste a week taking out Big D.
He's catching on. That's from Claire, basically, right? Has she talked to him about the wanting to get out.
Yeah, they've been talking about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's what again, they're trying here, but it's also, it's like these conversations are quickly becoming irrelevant. Like, we're getting to a point where I'm watching Derek and Claire and Sarah Beth and Alyssa, and like they're running around the house, and I'm like, oh, that's cute.
Yeah.
Like they don't matter anymore. Like, it doesn't, like, they can say whatever they want, they can do whatever they want. Like, their fate is all but sealed at this point.
They basically just need to, like, how many people would be left when it's coup d'etat time? So, like, if for some reason one of them gets the coup d'etat and gets a non-cookout member out that week, and the amount of people that are left, they still can't do anything, right? Like, yeah, the cookout would be fractured, but the rest of them will still stick together.
Exactly. Yeah. It's because, again, with a different kind of with an alliance that is not as bonded together under a common cause as the cookout, all it takes is one shot, and then they probably just scatter. And
because half of them are waiting for it to happen anyway.
Yeah, and it's possible that could happen with the cookout. If you took the shot at the right people, it could happen. Like, if X left, that could be a little tricky. Because he really helps occupy that sort of like bonding agent spot. Hannah does as well a little bit, but even so,
I think the only thing that could break the cookout would be one of the cookout members turning and thus then being targeted, but I don't think any of them will. So how could that, even if X is gone, the sides aren't really going to say, oh, now we can take shots at each other. Like, they're still probably going to.
It would need to be some kind of war of like, does X go, or does
true, yeah,
whoever else go. But again, I don't expect that it would happen.
So we're now for me personally kind of in this little waiting period of like, I know this is how I felt watching the Pretty Boys, and like I liked it. Like, it's still fun, it's still Big Brother, I still like the strategy, and they're planning for the future weeks. But for these next few weeks, it's just going to be kind of getting to that point where then the game's going to kind of pick up again.
Yeah, this is where it's like less day-to-day exciting on the feeds and more conceptually interesting to me. So Brittany is going to be campaigning, but it of course does not matter. She is not going to stay. She says she can go after big targets, but
yeah, she kind of her pleas are very generic, which is not really her fault, because what else can she do? But yeah, it's like, I can win competitions. I'm not afraid to make big moves. Like, I'm good because I'm a shield to her one, like, a decent pitch is that people just keep putting me up. So if I'm on the block, then the odds are less likely that you'll be on the block. And that's kind of fair, but not really worth keeping someone or doing a flip over.
Derek talks to Xavier. They're going to continue to sort of build the relationship that they have. X says that they need each other in the way that Derek and Christian needed each other, which didn't work out that great for Christian. But they talk about the possibility of taking Big D out. X, of course, is going to be leaning in the direction of sending Brittany out and trying to lead Derek in that direction. Derek also talks to Alyssa. They're, again, continuing to build that uneasy truce between the 3/4 of them, because Hannah's not really wanting it to happen. Hannah talks to the Jokers. Oz and Big D were talking about how guilty they felt about Brittany, but then they start running through scenarios, and the Jokers actually, I think, help convince Hannah, along with Tiffany and everybody else. Hannah went from Derek needs to go next to Alyssa needs to go next, and now she has been convinced Sarah Beth needs to go next. The Joker's logic, which was again what Tiffany wants as well. It makes sense to her that if you take out Sarah Beth, then she's like, okay, yeah, if you take out Sarah Beth, then Alyssa's going after Derek X. Derek X is going after Alyssa. Claire's going after Alyssa. They're all going after each other. That makes sense. Whereas Sarah Beth may not go for Claire, and may go for Derek X, but may not go for Claire. And would Claire go after Sarah Beth? Probably, but Hannah is very much all about thinking about like, well, who will go after who and where would this happen? I don't love her line of reasoning for a couple of reasons. I don't like it from her own personal standpoint. She should be keeping Derek X until the 7, and then Derek X can take a shot at Xavier, who she is way too interested in bringing to the end, and take him out for her, and then she's in a much better position to win the game. But apart from that, crossing that out, we know that her motivation is optimal way for the cookout to make it to the final 6. Okay. In that sense, I do think it makes sense to take out Derek X. I actually think it makes sense to take out Derek X next week.
Yeah.
But she doesn't want to take out Derek X next week because she's concerned that the other non-cookout women will not target each other. But the whole point is that you like that's the structure that you have. Like she's not having enough faith in the structure of the cookout and the sort of hold that they have on the games of the people not in the cookout. And the fact of the matter is, this is coming down, in my opinion, more to competitions and powers and everything else than it will thinking 3 weeks ahead. Yes, this person will go after this person 3 weeks from now. If these two people are gone, I think it's a losing battle. Just take out Derek X if your true goal is to get to the 6. So I feel like she's in this weird middle ground where she's not doing what's optimal for her game, and she's also not doing what's optimal for the cookout, even though I think she may think she's doing what's optimal for the cookout. And, again, I can see the logic, but I do disagree with it.
Yeah, I think that reminds me of like the Great Game Theory podcast by Shannon. She talks about how or the guest talked about how you can only think as many moves as you can conceivably handle ahead. So there's absolutely no point about planning 3 weeks ahead because you cannot account for all of those different combinations of things happening until then. You can only calculate 1 week or 2 weeks ahead. And so, like you said, by planning that far ahead, it's just doing absolutely nothing because that's not going to be the situation they're in 99 times out of 100. And it blows my mind that they're letting DX stay in the game when they know how good he is in competitions. And they don't seem worried at all about, if we let him stay too long, is he going to comp out? And I mean, granted, they'll still be at final 9 when they decide they want to start taking a shot at him, right? Or final 8. But that's
Hannah
still
wants him gone after Sarah Beth. So after talking to the Jokers, they run through that they should target Sarah Beth. Big D tells her about his whole, I'm going to take out Kylan's girl. And she agrees with that logic. She's going to talk to the cameras, and she says, next week, my targets are either Sarah Beth or Alyssa, but it seems like most people are leaning towards Sarah Beth, and I think that makes sense because Alyssa and DX will be targeting each other. After Sarah Beth, she says, it has to be Derek X because Alyssa and Claire won't target each other or will target each other after Derek X is gone. Yes, so because Derek X and Claire won't target each other, so it has to be Derek X. But it's I feel like she's thinking too much about these people need to target these people, these people need to target these people. I think if she wants to maximize cookout odds of making it to the end, Derek X should have gone this week. If not this week, it should be next week. It should not be 2 weeks from now. And if she wants to maximize her own personal game, then it should be 4 weeks, 5 weeks from now. She's in this weird middle ground for me.
I'm definitely disappointed by not seeing as many cookout members fight for their pawns, because I was thinking, okay, at least while we get to the 6, we'll at least see this this battle between wanting to keep their pawns, and we're getting a little bit of that, but for the most part, everyone's okay, yeah, it's their time to go or whatever. So Tiffany was able to save Claire, but it was not a point she would have let her go before she spent all of her social capital on it. And so Shada's not even trying to save her social capital because she's happy to let him go. And so I would have loved to see a little bit more of okay, now when it gets to the point where DX and Claire are going to go on the block and leave, let's make something happen here and let's get a power struggle going. But it sounds like she'll just be happy to let him go.
So Hannah says that it makes the most sense for the safest bet for her is to target Sarah Beth, and it makes the most sense for Big D to win the HOH. She says, look, the thing you have to understand, America, is that we are playing a separate fake game for all of our pawns. So we need to find the right HOH winner. She calls them pawns. And she says, this game is just really, really fun. I can't wait for a good and proper blindside. She's really feeling it. She's really feeling the power. She says, Kai has become a liability. And she says, I don't know why people voted for me to get some BB bucks, but if you voted for me because you like the cookout, keep it coming. If you voted for me because you like hot takes with Hannah, thank you. And if you voted for me because you like Derek X, hopefully you still like Derek X, and slide me some of that money. Okay, thanks. Bye.
In the same conversation where she's yeah, I'm going to take him out in 2 weeks, but keep giving me the money, please, if you like him.
She's going to use that money to get rid of Derek X. Absolutely. If she gets that coin, she's getting rid of Derek X with it. let me tell you, she can't wait for a good and proper blindside.
I already saw people online being like, I gave you money and you betrayed me.
I also think it's funny that she was like, well, hopefully people still like Derek X. Like, she's, like as though he's not like the number one.
What would have happened in the past 72 hours since he got his money that would make us not like him?
Well, he is just a pawn, Mel.
Oh, of course, yes.
Yeah.
No one likes pawns, but he made the jury marriage, so he's dateable. Yeah.
Well, there you go. So I people are really gonna not like this one, but
no.
if America gives Hannah money and she uses it to take out Derek X, like, look, it's gonna be tragic. But I mean, it's better than Big D taking Derek X out with the coin of destiny, right? It would be like a Shakespearean tragedy that America gives Hannah the money, and then Hannah is the one to anonymously take the knife in Derek X's back. I would love the just utter like brutality of it. It would make so many people upset, and if you're upset, then the show is working because you're feeling something.
Why do I see our viewer count going down? Yeah, I
look, if he has to go in the most dramatic way possible. This guy's not winning the game anyway, right?
But it'd be so heartbreaking because she could have kept him, and maybe Big D wouldn't have taken him out because he can't win a competition. But by the way, Big D is all like, "Oh, I can win slip and slide." Yeah, no. So like maybe Derek X could win out. That's like my tiny little straw of hope left. He can still win. I'm delusional.
Well, that's pretty much it. I mean, Derek, Claire, and Tiffany are going to run through scenarios for next week as well, talking about more just stuff about like X is the most insulated person in the house. It would be great to get him out, but they talk about, again, Claire just makes sure that they're thinking like having enough reasons to nominate at least one non-cookout member in all of the scenarios that they're running with the roulette and everything like that. But there's so many moving parts here that, again, these conversations just kind of go in circles, and it's not really going to lock down until we see what happens.
Yeah, I'm glad we didn't spend too much time talking about all their, like, if this person wins the power, then we get this person out, then they can't win the money, and they can't, because that's just, it's a lot, and it doesn't matter because, like, wait till you figure it out, or at least think you figure it out, and then kind of calculate from there. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, it's just a lot of math.
Yeah. So that's.
Oh, also, I'm curious about how they're going to find more money, because they mentioned on the episode that there'd be other ways to win money, and then the only way it makes sense for the person in the third week to win a power is if there's more money available. So, what's going to go on there?
We don't know. There's been nothing so far. There was nothing in the veto. So unless there's something in the HOH competition, then I think it's just going to be more votes.
I don't like it.
So that's about what we have for you, Mel. Anything else that you wanted to bring up?
We had a little beetle segment. The beetle was flying around, terrorizing the house guests, and X caught it in his bucket hat. And yeah, no, that's it. It was like, even, I don't know, just boring day. Just a lot of game talk, but they just kind of like ate, and Brittany complained, and I enjoyed watching it. But overall, it was fine. Hoping it picks up a little bit. I want a flip. Let's get a flip going. Come on. I know that you can't do it because of the cookout, but do it anyway.
Really, I think the thing to look for this week, the only thing that could maybe make it a little interesting is if Derek and Claire do not back down on the potential flip, that they really start pushing, and Hannah and Tiffany have to push back really hard, like the Kylan saying no thing doesn't work, and then that could raise some suspicions. Ultimately, the vote will not flip, as we know. But it could lead to some tension, maybe a little bit, maybe some sparks of suspicion. But I do not expect that to happen. I expect that, again, the social, the structure of how this works is that it's going to be very difficult for them to really catch on here. So, yeah, it's what you can look for, though, in terms of like what could change. That's what to look for.
That's always our favorite thing in Big Brother. Let's just hope. Hope it gets good. Yeah.
All right. Well, that's what we've got for you. Thank you guys for joining us here today. I will be live later tonight for the roundtable, where we will update the Stock Watch ratings and prices. It should be an interesting one, as lots of things have really changed and solidified here this week, as we have a pretty good sense of where the end game is heading. So that should be interesting. And then, of course, with the roulette coming up next week, that could be interesting as well. So make sure you tune in tonight. I will be tweeting out the survey. If you are interested in rating the players this week, then you can find it on Twitter at Armstrong Taran. I'll be tweeting it out after this podcast ends. And you can also find me on Twitch, twitch.tv/Taran Armstrong. Mel, where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter at YouCanAndYouMel. And today I'm taking over RHAP Instagram at RHAPGrams. I may or may not have taken a shot of maple syrup this morning. You'll have to look and find out.
Oh boy. How do you take a shot of maple syrup? How much syrup do you?
The shot glass.
Just a full shot glass of maple syrup.
Yeah, I didn't say I did. I said I might have.
If you were to do that, is it because it seems very viscous?
Yes.
Does it all go down as like one clump, or is it still liquid? Is it like actual maple syrup, or is it like?
So it's real maple syrup, but
Okay.
so depending on what you get, I live in the country. There's a lot of like farms here, and so their maple syrup is more watery, less viscous. So it slides, all comes out real much easier, not chunky.
Theoretically.
I'm never gonna do it again if you call it chunky.
All right. Well, thank you guys again for joining us here today, and I will see all of you next time.